again. Welcome to the Family Federation Report. My name is Geoff Fyers. In this program, we want to look at the ethics of love and sexuality. In the 1960s, we saw the sexual revolution take off and all its free lifestyle and free attitudes. We also saw that we had a breakdown in our traditional family values, and we today are reaping a lot of what was sown at that time. A very high rate of divorce, an incredible rise in sexually transmitted diseases, and so on. We also see that our young people are continually, even today, being bombarded with sexual images and movies and so on. A lot of parents are very concerned at what their children are seeing and wonder how it is going to affect them. We also see that a lot of our heroes are being tainted, and even the possible future King of England shows the battle scars of love and marriage. Some would say that the condom is the answer and think that it'll be able to solve all our problems. But I think that we need to look more wisely and find a more healthy and ethical solution to this dilemma. I hope you can join us for the next 30 minutes or so and gain some insights into this possible healthy ethical solution. What is hope that would be portrayed through this talk is that love is the most precious gift and experience that we can have in life. And like precious things, it should be well protected. The sexual revolution that we experienced in the 60s promised many things, that we would have more love, that we would have more sexual satisfaction and more personal fulfillment in life. And with this kind of thought and philosophy, it was well publicized through the media, through movies that we saw, through music that we heard, and magazines and various media. And as a result of their efforts, these ideas went mainstream. We heard that sexual desire was uncontrollable and that to control it was unhealthy, and that sex outside marriage was normal. And as a result of that, our young people also caught on to those ideas, wanting to be just like their adults, their grown-ups. They also became involved in this culture of uncommitted sex, and they lost their innocence. In the 1950s, there were very few sexually transmitted diseases. It didn't seem to be a very big problem. We heard of syphilis, perhaps, and gonorrhea. But today, we have come through the 90s, and we saw an incredible increase in the number of different types of sexually transmitted diseases. Some of them are incurable. Some of them cause infertility. Some of them are very extremely uncomfortable. And of course, some of them are life-threatening. Finally, we are now in the year 2000, and it is estimated that more than 45 million people are infected with the HIV disease or HIV virus, which is incurable. We do not hear much about HIV in New Zealand, although undoubtedly many New Zealanders have it. But in recent news articles, we have found that we have the human papillomavirus, which many people are being diagnosed as having. It is highly contagious, and there is no cure, and it increases the risk of cervical cancer between 1,000 and 2,000 times. It is also said that it is unlikely that condoms are able to protect us from this virus. So from these diseases, certainly from this point of view, we can see a need for a new ethic of love and sexuality, so that we can curb these excesses of the sexual revolution which continue to take place in our society, and also to enhance personal and marital fulfillment, so that we can end the high divorce rate that we have, and as a result also help to curb the spread of these diseases. In the studio now we have Dr. John Didsbury, practicing GP in South Auckland. Welcome to the show, Dr. John Didsbury.
Okay. Well, thanks, Geoff. I'm really grateful just to share a few words with you. STDs you've been talking about. There's a big rise in the incidence of STDs in New Zealand right now. One is the viral ones, which are not responsive to the antibiotics. And secondly, we're even finding a rising incidence of chlamydia and even gonorrhea at this time. And STDs always follow where there's a lot of sexual activity. Basically, where there's multiple partners, increases the risks of an STD. The interesting thing now with the HPV virus, 100% of cases of cervical cancer now are associated with the HPV virus, which is caught through sexually transmitted way. So what is the solution? So currently we are trying to promote this idea of the quote safe sex, but in reality we know that that's a misnomer. Condoms are a barrier to the bacterial ones, and to a large extent to the viral ones, but not 100% as you've mentioned. But in reality, especially young people, they do not use condoms. They are risk takers. They're very much into the here and now, and it's very difficult to get young people who have not yet matured to make mature decisions. And we know that this is risk-taking behavior. So I believe that the idea to promote condoms is not really helping. And we see actually in the last 10 years a lot of sex education taking place and the promotion of the condom culture. But in reality we have increasing terminations, we have increasing STDs, we have a decreasing age of first sexual experience. So in some ways we're trying to protect our young people, but the backside of this is that we're actually promoting immature sexual activity. And one is the physical ramification of this, but we see also the emotional ramification of broken relationships, loss of self-esteem, and I believe that is very detrimental to our society. So this is the challenge facing to us. You cannot get an STD if one person has no sexual relationship and the other person, they first come together. You can't catch anything. But it's all the multiple relationships. This is the cause of our the problems here physically, and I believe this got an emotional impact into our young people.
So the sexual freedom that we experienced during the 60s and beyond hasn't brought us closer to fulfilling our real nature and needs. We need to develop a true and lasting love. Falling in love has traditionally been overvalued by the popular culture. We know that romance itself is not enough to sustain marriages and families. There is an initial sexual attraction in falling in love, but it is a passing phase. Lasting love takes time and investment. With that initial attraction, our love can either mature into a mature type of love, or it can just remain on an infatuation level. And that if infatuation level, there's just an emphasis on receiving, a focus on external traits, and those involved become more self-absorbed and less productive. And of course, infatuation tends to start and end quite quickly and is weakened by time and separation. Maturing love, on the other hand, there's an emphasis on giving, a focus on internal traits, and we become more unselfish and more productive, and there's a steady growing of the individuals involved. Oftentimes also through a mature type of love, it is deepened by separation and time, and we learn to handle our quarrels much better. So there is a basic misconception about love. It's not a problem of, am I lovable, and but we need to develop that ability to concentrate more on my ability to love somebody else. And therefore this type of love requires a lot of investment, and love is a very powerful bonding force between couples. So before we come together in love, we need to exercise a lot of wisdom to know that we are mature enough to be able to handle love and to be able to handle marriage and family and so on. There is a time for love. And love also, we need to understand that the love is not just for ourselves that we experience as a couple. That love is for a higher purpose, which is to create and take care of children. That love that we generate as a couple needs to be a love that spills over into our community, into our society. And then those children and also that society will also support that love relationship and support that resulting family. And then it can be sustained. The idea that we, as a couple, we just stick to ourselves and we go off somewhere and we just share our love together, that type of selfish type of love will not be well sustained and not be well supported, and has much more of a chance to end in divorce. But if that love and that resulting family learns to live for the sake of others, then it has much more chance of being successful. So this is the type of love that we need to develop. So sex is a meaningful event. It's a very profound event, and it links us to the deepest aspects of our being. It connects us with love, with life, with our conscience, and with our lineage. The power of sex is very pleasurable. It also brings a bond between the couple, and it creates a child. It continues the lineage. It joins cultures and creates a future. Power can be either constructive or destructive. And so marriage harnesses the power of sexuality so that it can be constructive. Stability for the sharing of love, security for a child, and it also honors the lineage. All these things marriage does in the sexual relationship between a man and a woman. There's also a uniqueness of marriage. It joins two lives. Families, the two families come together of each individual involved. It also joins their possessions. It joins their destiny, and even their physical bodies. It joins them. So sex should be exclusive to the spouse. There needs to be, and there should be, a mutual ownership of physical sexuality. One's sexual expression should be for the spouse alone. It fulfills its function completely, and it should be based on true love. Love and sex are often confused, and our youth are often confused about the relationship between the two. Why youth have premarital sex is that they are looking for love, seeking acceptance, and also trying to prove oftentimes their manhood or womanhood. In those growing years and adolescence years, that is the time when they should be receiving a vertical type love from their parents in the form of nurturing, and at that time they should be learning about marriage and learning about the relationships, the dynamics of a marriage relationship when they see their parents. And also the parents should be really concerned about also training the children so they can be a giving in their families in the future through sports, through music, developing their talents, so they can be really giving people in later life and have something to contribute to their marriage. Relationship problems of premarital sex are that they tend to stimulate selfishness. When we are really immature, we are only just thinking about ourselves, not thinking about the consequences of that love relationship. It also creates a possessiveness, because when we are young, we are still thinking a lot about ourselves. It also inhibits our communication. We also compare to past partners when we have lots of relationships. And there's a tendency towards infidelity. Sexually transmitted diseases also, there's going to be a big rise in that, and also a greater likelihood of divorce once we are married if we have premarital sex relationships. Adolescents developmentally are unprepared for sex. Sex is very powerful, and young are often unable to connect sex with love, unable to think of the future, and sex before the heart is developed also leads to emotional problems. Success in love requires a qualification. Positions in life depend on meeting certain criteria, and the qualification for sex is maturity in marriage. Freedom to express sexual love should only be realized in a married situation when we are mature, not only physically but mentally and spiritually mature. And there needs to be a developmental period that needs to be gone through in our adolescent years. And during that time, we should be sexually abstinent. We should keep our purity, and we should focus on other things that that can help develop our character, and it's more a selfless lifestyle that can foster a better marriage in the future. So what we want to bring today through the Family Federation philosophy is this ethic of true love and sexuality. It's the abstinence of sex before marriage, fidelity to one's lifelong spouse, oneness in love. We call this the absolute sex ethic. The absolute sex ethic is one of true love and one lifetime spouse. Conversely, the free sex ethic that we've been having is more focused on self-gratification and multiple sexual partners. The ethic of true love and sexuality has a lasting intimacy. It's rooted in heart and character, and using those relationship skills that we were able to develop in our families as we received from our parents who fostered this philosophy. Moral and ethical regeneration of society can then take place. Through sexual purity and fidelity, strong families can develop, and then a prosperous nation can be realized. We have with us now Leona, the wife of Dr. John Didsbury. She's studying for a BA in psychology at Auckland University. And welcome to the program, Leona.
Thank you.
So, you're a mother of teenagers. What do you tell your children about their sexuality?
Well, I think the message that I'd like to give them most clearly is that their sexuality is actually a gift. It's something that they need to think deeply about themselves, because it does belong to them. I don't expect them to just accept what I say about it, but I want them to really think deeply about what this gift means for their life and for the life of people that they will affect. I guess an example might be if you were given $1 million at birth, say you automatically inherited $1 million at birth, and at 12 you were able to start spending it, then you'd have to think in your life and as you're growing how you wanted to use that $1 million. Some people might say, as soon as I turn 12, I'm going to eat every junk food I want and do every video game I want and buy everything I want, and maybe use the $1 million in their teenage years. But if you think about it, then they have a whole lifetime where they might wish that they had been a bit more careful and more thoughtful about that gift. And I think that although you can't really compare your sexuality to money, it's much more valuable than that. It's a good comparison, because if you receive a gift and understand the value of it, then you know how to use it in your life, and you know how to multiply it and share it with others. And in a sense, if you don't realize the value of a gift, you might just fritter it away or lose it or abuse it, and then you don't have it anymore. And it's the individual that receives the gift who's the loser in that situation. For example, if you were given $1 million and decided, I'm not spending a penny until I'm 20, and then I'm going to invest it with the person I love the most in the whole world, then you might spend your whole teenage years just trying to keep other people from getting it. And they might give you a really hard time. We want your money, give it now. And yet, if you make it to your 20 and you find that person that you really love and you're able to invest it together with them, then who's won in that situation? Certainly you've won if you've been able to preserve this gift that you can then use to really bring life. I was a teenager in the 1960s. I always tell my children that I was part of the Forrest Gump generation. In fact, when I watch that movie, almost everything that happens in that movie, I know someone who that's happened to, or it's happened to myself. And the sad thing that happened in the 60s is people thought they wanted free love and decided that they wanted to separate love out from the sexual experience. For example, when I was growing up, you never talked about having sex. You talked about making love, because it was always seen in that context. But what happened during the 60s was, as our contraceptive technology became better, the pill was developed, people decided that they wanted to have the choice to have as many partners as they want, then love and sex and even fertility all became separate issues. But personally, I feel they're very connected. They're not separate issues, and they're meant to be together. They're a very complex. Human sexuality and love is a complex human behavior, and to oversimplify it is like devaluing the gift that you were given. To take it for granted, for example, is like taking the gift for granted, and then you're liable to use it in a way that's less than the value that you've been given.
Leona, what do you think about the term casual sex?
Right. Well, I think that's a term worth thinking about. I really respect the American Indians because they have a real respect for nature, bordering on a fear for nature, because actually when we look at the natural world, there's a lot of power there. And if you lose your respect and sometimes fear for it, you might find yourself in a situation of danger, or you might find that you're hurt. And I think sexuality, human sexuality, is that type of element within life that really demands our respect and even sometimes our fear. For example, a fire in your home can bring light and warmth, sustenance. It can make an environment for growth and development. But a fire out of control is the most dangerous and frightening experience. And I think that human sexuality is similar. I'm really disappointed that anyone even has ever coined the phrase casual sex. And I think anyone who thinks deeply realizes that that phrase is strange. It doesn't really describe sexuality. Casual does not describe the human sexual relationship. If we look at our bodies, we can see that even physically, sex is not casual. It's got a dimension to it that is very private and is also not something that just happens automatically. I think where casual sex usually happens is in areas where people are drinking or on drugs, and they lose their normal inhibitions. If you notice when you're with other people, there's a certain boundary you have around yourself. You might break that boundary, for example, to shake someone's hand, or to even smile at someone is sometimes breaking that personal boundary. But your boundaries have to be very diffuse in order to have an immediate sexual relationship with someone. I really don't think it's part of nature's plan. And I think that my advice to young people is to think deeply about life itself. Don't just take what the newspapers give you, or the TV, the movies, even what your parents or teachers tell you. You have to think about it yourself and try to find some sense and order. Because I really think there is order and there is purpose in every relationship that people have. And I think if we think deeply about them, we'll begin to realize what that order is. Certainly, I think that sexuality is probably the most profound experience of relationship that a human being can have with another human being in their lifetime. And I think that that in itself is worth thinking about and understanding how to maximize that greatness and to make that a relationship that really brings life and brings warmth and brings light into your life. I really feel that the whole separation of the sexual relationship from fertility, the fact that having a sexual relationship can create a whole new life, and the separation of sexual relationship from love, the fact that through a sexual relationship you, in a sense, open yourself to the other person in the most vulnerable way, I think that's really a shame. I think that's something that we need to look at as a society, because I think that that starts to devalue our sexuality, and we start to lose the value of it if we think about it that way.
The Family Federation for World Peace and Unification was founded by the Reverend and Mrs. Sun Myung Moon for the purpose of promoting the true love and true family ethic. We hope you have been enlightened by these ideas and that they can help you to strengthen your families. If you would like to support this program, or you'd like some more information, please call us on our 0800 True Family number. Or for further information, you could look up one of our websites. You've been watching the Family Federation report. My name is Geoff Fyers. Until next time, bye for now.